All right, we're back with another episode of The Curious Cat. I hope you guys are all doing well wherever you are. Very exciting times we're living in. The news just keeps getting better and better, in my opinion. I'm just so excited about the future and how quickly things are changing. I really am a big believer that technology is going to liberate us from the grips of these evil deep state cabal, or whatever you want to call them, that have been ruling over us for many years. Technology, or even nature in a way. Sometimes I even like to think of technology as nature because it did naturally unfold or reveal itself. So, in a way, I think it's just nature trying to find its way. I often like to think of it as a river that's been dammed, and the water will just slowly look for a little path through. And then at first it's very slow, and kind of the first droplets of water will make its way through and break through, find a way through the barriers. And then all of a sudden it starts cutting a path through, and then all of the water starts flowing through that direction. And then before you know it, you have a raging river where once nothing was able to pass. So, in a sense, that's really the metaphor I see. I see that's probably how this is going to unfold with blockchain technology, and how it's evolving and how it's finding a way around the grips of something like the US dollar, and how they've really been able to increase their authority and their kind of their financial grip on the world by holding the world reserve currency status, and by being able to manipulate that and print the currency out of thin air to buy real assets. So now we're seeing all kinds of stuff in markets. We just had really big news, in my opinion. I've been talking about this for some time, that I believed that we would soon see a sovereign adopt Bitcoin, just because of the way the world is going and kind of this currency war that is taking place, and some of the US sanctions that are placed on other countries. And with all of this kind of financial control and and sanctions that the US are able to place on other countries, it's only a matter of time before they look for an alternative. And when we have something like Bitcoin that's really an international currency, it's not owned by any centralized nation state. It's really, in my opinion, it's the people's money, because of its decentralized nature, because anyone can own it, and that it is borderless, permissionless, and it's really censorship resistant money, which is fascinating, in my opinion. And we just had the news that Iran is adopting Bitcoin. They're starting to use Bitcoin to purchase imports. So they've been having a large, or quite a bit of a problem with their currency. They've been experiencing a lot of inflation and US sanctions placed against them. And so their real, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right, the real, their local currency, has been suffering greatly, and it's been devaluing quite substantially against the US dollar, and they haven't really had much in their power to kind of to do anything about it, because the US, having the global reserve currency status, they can just come in and print money if they need it, and they can kind of print their way out of this financial crisis. But if you're kind of a smaller country, and people don't really want your currency, well, you can print all the money you want, but it's not really going to solve your financial problems. So they're kind of backed into a corner in that sense, where the sanction, the US is trying to control how they can trade on the international market and whatnot. And so they're kind of backed into a corner. And that's what I thought would happen. I believe that basically one of these more fringe countries would experience something like this, and basically they would have no more option except to explore alternatives. And here we are, we're seeing it. Basically, they were backed into a corner, and so now they are looking to alternatives, and they don't really have much to lose. at this point. It's so why not try and adopt something new like Bitcoin and kind of take your chances with it? Because other than that, they're kind of backed into a corner. They're not able to use their local currency on a global scale. It's being devalued. They have no way to kind of print themselves out of that situation. And so they've gotten to the point where they're taking their chances with Bitcoin. And what that's going to do is it's going to increase the pressure for other nation states to start doing the same. It's kind of like that analogy of the river where it's, a few droplets get through at first, and then all of a sudden, people start seeing, oh, there's a better path. Oh, look how easy that water's flowing over there. Why are we trying so hard to get through over here and we're not getting anywhere? And then all of a sudden there's just kind of this natural flow and this ease that unfolds where, nature finds its way through the resistance or through the block. And I think that's what we're seeing right now is, we're seeing some of these high net worth individuals start putting large amounts of their cash holdings into Bitcoin. And so that's kind of the few first droplets that get through and start exploring, taking the risk, trying to forge a new path. And then, it's kind of just very slow at first, and then all of a sudden all at once. And so we've seen the high net worth individuals. We've seen hedge funds starting to come over, large respected investors like Paul Tudor Jones. And now we're seeing, larger publicly traded companies like MicroStrategy and Michael Saylor, where they just put the bulk of their treasury holdings into Bitcoin. So these are kind of the first few that kind of take the risk and they forge the path forward. And then all of the other people start to kind of, the pressure increases where, oh, okay, that guy, that billionaire's holding Bitcoin, that nation state's starting to hold Bitcoin, and you don't want to be the last one to the party. So essentially what's going to happen is I think personally that a lot of these nation states, these corporations, these large banks are probably secretly acquiring Bitcoin in small amounts, kind of behind the scenes. They just haven't publicly announced it because it's just too risky at this point to not have any Bitcoin. So we are still very early in the adoption of this. It's still relatively small if you look at the market compared to, say, gold or something like that, or something massive like the derivatives market. But that to me just shows opportunity. It shows that, we are in a price discovery of a new asset class, and that's why I see so much opportunity. A lot of people seem to think that that's a downside, that oh, not many people know about Bitcoin, or if they do, they don't know enough to buy it, they don't hold it, they don't own it. And people see that as a downside. But what I see is a ton of opportunity. I see this as being early, one of the early adopters. So sure, there's a bit more risk involved in that, but at the same time, there's a lot more opportunity because we are so early. And as this whole currency war, devaluation of fiat currency continues to unfold on a global scale, and this kind of economic fallout of years of just money printing and not having it backed by anything, not having anything limiting the governments to how much money they could create. Well, now we're seeing kind of the pitfalls unfold of that, where, there's so much of this money that's been put into circulation, and we see that it's pretty much a massive Ponzi scheme orchestrated by the elite banking cartel. And now people are waking up to that fact, and everyone's scrambling to get real assets. And you can see that in the astronomical rise in property costs, in the astronomical rise in stocks, the stock market, all that. So people are scrambling to get out of dollars as they wake up to this illusion and realize that they really have no intrinsic value whatsoever. So we've seen the rush to gold, which is kind of the traditional hedge against inflation and money printing or currency debasement. But with this day and age we live in, I believe that Bitcoin offers a lot more of a solution than gold. We can actually transact with it very easily. We can, send it internationally. It's cheap to store. It's really easy to move around. It's portable. It doesn't tarnish. It's highly divisible. All these things we look for when we look for kind of the ideal money. And gold has always been the best store of value over history. If you look back, it's the only money that has never gone to zero, unlike all of these fiat experiments that have been carried out by these nation states. They've always ended up crashing and ending in hyperinflation, because if you can just print the currency and buy real stuff with it, it's pretty hard for people to not fall into that trap because inherently we are greedy as humans. We are greedy and selfish. So if you have the ability to just create that currency instead of actually contributing something of worth for it, it's just how it always goes. So these governments, it always ends the same, where they just start printing it out of thin air and creating a whole bunch and not contributing for it, and then it ends in hyperinflation. So gold has always been the go-to, but now we live in a new world where everything is digital. And if you look at kind of the way this is all unfolded, it's, there was a lot of doubt about the internet in the beginning, and a lot of doubt that people would ever use it, and that there would ever be businesses on it, that we'd ever send our mail on it. And now look how it's unfolded. So I really think this is just another trend of technology finding its way through the resistance, creating something that's more efficient and has less barriers, less restriction, less corruption. And it's really just a better way of doing business, of having our money system. So when a better technology comes along, at first it's adopted by the few, and then the masses can kind of see the benefits that the first few brave souls are reaping, and then they're attracted to it. They're kind of allured into the benefits of that. So I think that's what's happening here, where in the beginning it's just the first few early adopters of this, but now it's getting to be quite a big deal, where before people just thought it was some bit of a joke. It was only used by criminals on the black market and whatnot. But now we're seeing nation states adopt it. We're seeing huge publicly traded companies adopt it. We're seeing hedge funds put large sums of their investment into it. So this is no longer a small deal. This is now a really big deal. And it's still very early on. And so if we kind of compare it to the market cap of something like gold, then we can really see the potential, because really what Bitcoin is doing, it's competing with gold. I think that is kind of the next barrier for Bitcoin, is to compete with gold and to rise up to have an equal market cap with gold. And that, I think, puts Bitcoin somewhere around 100,000 or 300,000 US dollars. So that's a lot of room at the current price. And that's really the way I see it going. That'll be its next barrier. And the barrier after that will be the US dollar. And once it passes that point, that's when we could see Bitcoin go as high as $1 million or something like that. So it's really just, in my opinion, a matter of how the central bankers really react to this, and this could happen very quickly because, like I said, as soon as a nation state starts adopting it, it really puts the pressure on other nation states to at least acquire a tiny amount of it just as a hedge or as some form of security against the kind of fragile banking system that we currently use. And in my opinion, it won't be beat because of its superiority. If you look at what makes a good money, you'll see that Bitcoin is kind of the best money we've ever had. There's obviously a couple of vulnerabilities, and I would say that being that we do need the internet up and running, but I think we would have much bigger problems if the entire internet crashed or if the entire electrical grid went down. So that I'm not too worried about it, but I do like to stay diversified and have my precious metals just in case. So that's a hedge against that kind of a black swan event. And of course we do have the risk of governments really cracking down or attempting to crack down on this. But I don't see that working just because of the decentralized nature of Bitcoin. I don't think they're going to be able to do it. If you look at something like BitTorrent exploded, and they've never been able to take down the BitTorrent technology or the torrenting technology because of its decentralized nature. So Bitcoin kind of evolved from that same concept of having distributed redundancy in the technology, so that if they manage to take down one of the sites, well, 5 more spring up as mirror sites. So Bitcoin's kind of that same concept of its redundancy, distributed redundancy, and there just isn't going to be an easy way for them to crack down. And if one country does try to crack down, well, they're really taking a massive risk, because if somewhere like Iran is embracing it and kind of relaxing the laws on it, well, if the US decides to crack down, then that could really, they could lose a lot of innovation, a lot of business, a lot of the big companies involved in this would clearly have some incentive to move to a different country. And I think we'd see a lot of capital flow out of the countries who are trying to kind of censor and restrict technology from offering better solutions. And we'll see that capital flow into other countries that are kind of learning to embrace this and allow it to unfold. And so those are my thoughts. I'm just fascinated by this. I've been studying finance for about 20 years now, and I've always wanted to see something like this. It's when you learn about finance and you learn about kind of these crimes that are being committed against the general public, it's sickening. And I've always wanted to see a solution, because if people knew what was actually going on, how they were being robbed and how corrupt the financial system is, people would be shouting for a revolution tomorrow. I think right now everyone's anger and hate and all that is all misdirected. And I think the main place we should be directing this is at these banking cartels, because that's really what's holding us back and keeping us kind of enslaved. So it's very important, in my opinion, that we really do our best to adopt this new technology. And I really do believe that it will set us free, and Bitcoin is just the start, in my opinion. I think that over the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to see all kinds of stuff move to the distributed ledger technology. So I always think about stuff like our history books, how they're, the powers that be actually alter history. They mess with the definitions of words now, all that kinds of stuff. And now there's a reason for us to protect truth and protect history and protect you know, the real definitions of words, because language is so important if we're trying to concisely discuss important topics. So when they're just coming in and changing the definition of these words, then they no longer have the same meaning that they should, and they're able to kind of manipulate us through those means. And another thing we're going to see is the voting. I think right now it's probably going to come to light how much of a fraud the voting system is. I've always believed that. I've never believed that it's legit, and that's why I don't actually vote anymore. I really don't believe in it. I think it's a total facade. I think it's total BS. I don't think the votes are actually truly counted. So that's another thing where we're going to see this technology kind of offer a solution to all the corruption, and we're going to take away the necessity of having to place trust in centralized authority, and we can take that out of the hands of people, because like I said, people are inherently corrupt, and then we can put that trust into a computer algorithm where we no longer have to trust a human being. We can put it into a computer program where we can ensure that it is 100% legit, and there is no way for any centralized authority to meddle in those results, and it will all be a public ledger that anyone can verify and look at any point. And to me, that this decentralized technology is the solution to so many of our problems. That's why I think it's fascinating and it's so exciting. And I really do believe that this technology is going to liberate us and set us free in so many ways, and restore a lot of honesty into our system, and rid the whole thing of all of this corruption. And I think that it's going to trim a lot of the fat and the leeches out of the system, where they actually might have to go get real jobs instead of just sitting behind their big fenced estates and stealing our wealth and, you know, feeding us the breadcrumbs while they sit back and enjoy all of the liberties. So I really do think this is exciting times. I hope you guys are excited as well. I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll leave it at that. I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel, hit like on the video, and I'll see you in the next one.